Hi there guys, this is an analysis of the poem The Boxer by Emma Payne. Nice, simple, straightforward title, The Boxer, and the content of the poem is in fact about a boxer. I'll try and keep this analysis as short as possible, so bear with me. I'm sure you're all familiar with a boxing match. You've either seen snippets of it or you've watched a movie about boxing, most notably the Rocky franchise. If you haven't already read the poem, there it is. You'll notice that it contains 4 stanzas. Each stanza consists of 4 lines. The lines are all pretty much of the same length. If we look at the rhyme scheme, we'll see it's A, B, C, B, etc. It is quite consistent in that the second line and the 4th line of each stanza rhyme. We don't have a name for that kind of rhyme scheme. It's not rhyming couplets, it's not alternating rhyme. So if you were asked identify the rhyme scheme, you would have to write out A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E, G, H, I, H, J, K, L, K. Alright, you'll also notice that there is enjambment. If you're not familiar with that term, enjambment simply means that a sentence runs from one line of a poem to the other. So, for example, if we look here, line 5, he spits blood like a cherub in a fountain. That's all one sentence, but it's gone from this line onto that line. So we call that enjambment. Make sure you spell it correctly. Okay, let's look at the first stanza. The great iron figure crouches, scabs like flowers on his knees, and his chest is like a mountain, his legs are thick as trees. Alright, now this boxer is not actually made of iron, okay, but because he's so strong and dominating, it's as if he is made of iron, okay. So we use the metaphor by saying, okay, he is an iron figure. We're not using like or as, so it's not a simile. However, in lines 2, 3, and 4, the poet does make comparisons using like and as, and so therefore all 3 lines there contain similes. Now this boxer has been beaten, and he's obviously been fighting for a long time, and he's seriously injured, so he's crouching there. Okay, and there you can see this man over here in the image is in fact crouching. We call it being on your haunches, when your thigh and your bum kind of meet there and you're on your toes. Okay. Now, he has scabs like flowers on his knees. So, he's obviously got a lot of cuts and that on his knees, and they're scabbing over, but scabs are usually like quite uneven and irregular shaped. Okay, so they're like little protrusions on his knees, so they're like flowers. Okay, and his chest, because he's so muscular and strong, he's obviously got quite a big chest, and it looks like a mountain, like this image over here. Now, when you hear the word mountain, and we refer to word use as being diction. When you hear mountain, you think like a big mass of rock, okay? Which goes nicely with the fact that we've described him as being an iron figure. And his legs are as thick as trees, because he's got such muscular legs that they're like the trunks of a tree, okay? So this is all about the physical description of the boxer. So he's got this and that. Alright, happy days. Moving on, stanza 2, we'll see that he spits blood like a cherub in a fountain spouting foam. Now, if you go back to the first slide here with the poem on it, here is a cherub. A cherub is like an angelic, like angel-like kind of being that is often seen in fountains. Okay, I'm not 100% sure why, but anyway, you can go look that up if you like. But here is an example in this image of a fountain making use of a cherub, and he's spitting out water. So now if we go to this image over here, and we see that he's being compared to a cherub spouting foam in a fountain, because his mouth and that is so full of blood that he keeps spitting this blood. And to emphasize that it's so much blood that he keeps spitting out, we say it's almost like a fountain, because a fountain is like a continuous state of flowing, right? So here's a nice simile which goes from line 5 onto line 6. If you were asked to indicate what the sound device is in line 6, you would have 2 options. You could say it's alliteration, repetition of the F sound in fountain and foam, okay? And then you would actually quote fountain spouting foam and underline the F. Alright, that would get you full marks. Or you could say that there's assonance, because there's repetition of the OU sound in fountain spouting, okay? And similarly, you would quote fountain spouting and then underline OU there, alright? Now the poet has made use of an interesting contrast, because a cherub, as we saw in the image, is an angel which is supposed to be all innocent and holy and clean, as much as you can get, really. But yet at the same time it's being compared to a boxer, which is dirty and sweaty and tough and battered and bruised and quite violent. Okay, so there's definitely a contrast of images there. Now this boxer is ringed around, which is quite clever because he's obviously in a boxing ring, and being ringed around means that it's surrounding you, it's enclosing you. Okay, so he's in this boxing ring with these swinging ropes, obviously, of the ring, and punters going home. Now punters are people who like to gamble and bet. Okay, so they might go to the horse racing and bet there or whatever. In this case, they've come to a boxing match and they bet on a winner. Now they're going home tells us that this boxing match is over, and the fact that the boxer is so beaten probably means that yes, the match is over. I'm sure some of the punters are very angry or disappointed because they lost money, because no doubt some of them bet that this boxer that we're talking about, that is the subject matter, lost, and they therefore lost money. Okay, moving on to stanza 3, broken-knuckled, shiny-eyed. In line 9, there are 2 compound adjectives to describe the boxer. They are compound adjectives because, well, they're adjectives, they're describing the boxer, and they are one word each, but they consist of 2 separate words that can stand alone, in this case hyphenated, to form one word. So that's a compound word, but because they're adjectives, they're compound adjectives. Okay, so his knuckles are literally like broken. Okay, and he's shiny-eyed because he's been punched in the face and in the eye, and his eye's all bruised and swollen, and we actually call that a shiner. If you got punched in the eye and you've got like a big bruise around your eye, people will say, oh, he has a shiner. Okay, so that's why he's shiny-eyed in a sense. And there's alliteration again there with broken, battered, bruised. Okay, so repetition of the B sound. And I've written there, it's quite a harsh sound. So the poet, who doesn't just throw in sound devices and figures of speech when he or she feels like it, it's done for a reason. What she's done here is she's like, okay, this is a very violent match that he's been in, and he's really battered. So let me use broken, battered, bruised, almost emphasizing or mimicking the punches that this guy has taken. And wet. He is wet with droplets. So here we see enjambment again, wet with droplets, okay, like cold rubies, and laced with bitter sweat. So he's actually covered in blood. And rubies, which you can see over here, are red gemstones, nice shiny red gemstones, and here are some droplets of blood. Okay, so there you can see the similarity between the two. So it's fitting then that she's referred to these droplets of blood as looking like rubies. Okay, and he's laced with bitter sweat. Now lace, as you can see here an image, I'm sure your gran or your mother maybe has still got some lace around, maybe a tablecloth or a little bit on a coffee table or something like that. But you can see that it's like irregular shaped. Now sweat and blood, like on your body, won't just be like one solid sheet. It will be like patchy. Okay, particularly since it's sweat and blood mixing together. So it almost looks like lace of sweat and blood on the body of the boxer. Now, why is the sweat bitter? Well, sweat in terms of taste, it's salty, so in that case it's bitter. But it's also bitter because the boxer is actually bitter because he's lost. He's obviously disappointed. Moving on to the final stanza, we see it says he crouches again like he was in stanza 1, so he's still crouching, in other words, in a corner, in his pool of sparkling red. There's so much blood now on the canvas of the ring that it's as if he's in a pool, like a swimming pool of blood. Of course, he's not in an actual pool. I mean, that's a bit of hyperbole, exaggeration, but it's still a comparison. But the poet hasn't used like or as to emphasize how much blood there is. She said that it is a pool of sparkling red. So that is why it's a metaphor. And the sparkling there goes quite nicely with the ruby imagery that we got just now, because the rubies will be nice and shiny and glistening, okay, just like the blood will be, I suppose. And the thing is that this boxer is dreading the jeers that soon will fall like blows upon his head. So even though he's broken, knuckled and shiny-eyed and battered and bruised, which is painful, obviously, what is just as painful, if not more painful to him, is not the physical pain, but the fact that people are going to jeer at him. In other words, they're going to boo him, they're going to make fun of him and laugh at him because he's lost. Right? He hates the fact that he's lost. And I think that's a theme that all of us can relate to. We've all had an instance where we've lost, and it's not a nice feeling. And he's saying that, the poet is saying that the boxer feels that those jeers, those booing and laughing at him, is just like being hit on the head or punched in the face. Okay, it's just as painful. So as you can see, it is just as hurtful to the boxer to get booed than it is to actually physically get hit in the head. That's how much it means to the boxer, this losing. He hates losing. And that is the poem, guys. Nice and straightforward. Make sure you get all the notes and prepare yourself for any question that may come your way. I have no doubt that you are now equipped to answer them.